Today is Thursday, March 28th, 2024. This is Jeff Pastor, Chair of the Lancaster Board of Health. Meeting is now called to order. We have member Melinda Apgar with us. Also Bill Brookings, our Neshoba Health Agent, and Samantha Zedeker, Administrator, Lancaster Department of Public Health, and a number of guests with us today. I will try to get to any topics that the guests have on the agenda ahead of the other agenda, just to be respectful of people's time. Just want to remind everybody that we are being recorded. And please, actually, everybody does have their first and last name already on the Zoom screen, which I appreciate. If anybody who is a guest wants to address the board, just raise your hand, either your actual hand, or you can go to the reactions tab on the bottom of the screen. You may have a raise hand tab or a reactions tab that has a raise hand tab, and I will try to get to you. Just as a reminder, though, the only issues that will be entertained are things that are already on the agenda. Okay. Mr. Carloni, Evan, do you have an item on with us today?
Yes, I do. It's for 255 Mill Street Extension.
Okay. Bill, is it okay if we do that one first and take care of Evan and let him get on his way?
Yep.
All right, great. Thank you. Would you like me to screen share the plan?
Sure.
Right.
Or it looks like Samantha's doing
Samantha's
it.
got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, great. So thank you all for having me. Evan Carloni, Innovative Septic Design. I'm here on behalf of the owner of 255 Mill Street Extension. What we've got here before you is a 4-bedroom replacement system. This is what we're proposing is a Presby EnviroSeptic. The EnviroSeptic is being proposed due to high groundwater. What we'd like to do is utilize the 2-foot offset allowed by the approval letter to basically keep this a gravity-fed system instead of incorporating a pump chamber. So we do have an existing system that is immediately behind the house, which we will abandon in place, and then we'll go down behind the previous garage, which is no longer there. The foundation's there, but the garage is no longer there, and this is downhill from the upper portion of the yard. So we utilize that 2-foot reduction. It allows us to stay gravity, and it does take down mounding a bit. It will still be a bit mounded, but it's not so bad. I believe it's only about a foot or so. So the request is the approval of the utilization of the 2-foot offset by the approval letter, the DEP approval letter for Presby.
So has the existing system failed?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Bill, do you want to weigh in on this one before Melinda and I ask any questions that we might have?
Yeah, sure. Evan did a great description. Again, it's a upgrade to an existing home with a failed septic. So this is proposed replacement, 2-compartment tank versus the single compartment tank that's there because it is a 2-family. And yes, the Presby approval does allow that 2-foot groundwater offset, which again, keeps that system accessible by gravity, and it doesn't create a real big mound there in the backyard. Yep. So that is allowed.
So that's not real. We're not really talking about a variance here. We're just talking about an allowance based on what's already written.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Bill, do you have any concerns about the design or the proposal?
No.
All right. Melinda, any questions, comments, or concerns?
No, I have no questions, comments, or concerns.
All right, nor do I. I should have mentioned at the outset that our third board member, John Farnsworth, is not able to be here today due to the arrival of another grandchild for him and his family. So that's an awesome, happy reason to be missing a Board of Health meeting. So we'll miss him today, but great news for him and his family. All right.
Man himself.
Anything, do we need a vote on this one, Bill, or do we just need to let you go ahead and work with Evan and the designer to, Bill, you're on mute, actually, if you're talking to us.
No, I've got someone in the office.
Oh, okay.
Because of course he won't.
Sick. Yeah, so that I do have a permit drafted for that 255 Mill Street extension. I'll sign that for the board.
All right, we appreciate it. And thanks for coming today, Evan, to present the proposal.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me. Have a great day.
All right, thanks. You too.
Right.
All right. I want to acknowledge Lori and Kevin Hinckley, who are here today, I'm quite certain, for Grant Road. So what we have here is I'm going to try to summarize the situation and ask for Samantha to assist with any emails that document the concerns that the Hinkleys have about what's going on and around their property. But the sum and substance of it is that, excuse me, their house, their property, their possessions are being affected by sand, which is being blown in from a property nearby, or I think behind their backyard, if I'm not mistaken. And they have presented us with some pictures showing how the sand is encouraging into their car, their slider door track, and some other areas. And they feel as though and again, once I finish, Lori and Kevin, please correct me if I'm misstating it, but this is being viewed as a nuisance as well as a potential health hazard, particularly on the very windy days that we've been having recently. And they want to know if the Board of Health can do anything about it. So before the board talks about it, let me just go to Lori and Kevin and ask them to fill in the blanks. Anything that I said that was not correct, or anything else that you want to add that I did not say.
I think that's this is Kevin Hinckley, 194 Grant Way. Thank you for your time. I think that's a fair assessment. The background is this is parcel 32A, which is a sand and gravel facility owned by Laurel Realty. I believe they do have an ERP to do some earth removal. The issue here is that well over a couple of years ago, all the topsoil in the picture you're seeing here was removed. It's up on the hill to the left. You can't see that now. All the sand here was dug out, and it's extremely fine sand, very, very, very fine. And it's placed in piles here, and it's been there for a couple of years now. And on these windy days, it picks it right up, and you can see a little bit of it in the picture. There's a little picking up dust right there. And we're only right across, a couple 100 feet maybe from these piles, the border of our property. And it whips up and it just carries right over. You see there's a picture of it, all my cards, it's all collected. That was in one day. So we have lots of children, young children. We have some elderly folks. Myself, I have pulmonary issues. I'm on asthma medication, so we can't go outside on windy days. The windows have to stay shut. And I think our desire would be, I don't know if there's some kind of ERP mitigation, which I know is not uncommon for dust control. But even if the piles could simply be relocated elsewhere on the large property away from the residential areas, I think it's like a over 40-acre property. So I think that's a quick summary of it. I don't know if Lori had any other comments that I missed, or if you have any questions, that would be fine.
Yeah, this is Lori Hinckley. The only thing I had to add was this has been going on for a couple of years. It's just sitting there. And we probably should have done something about this sooner, but we didn't feel that this was going to be just a problem for this period of time. So with the warmer weather coming, I would like to be able to open up my windows. So we figured we would contact you to see if there was anything that you could do about just relocating these piles.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Samantha, I'm trying to get you through chat, but maybe you're busy with other stuff. Can you just advance those pictures so that we can see all of them? All right, that's more of a close-up of probably the biggest sand pile there, and it's pretty easy to see the dust coming up from it. And some more. Okay, I think that's a picture of their driveway. Is that right?
Yeah, that's
Yes.
the driveway.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that is separated from, like, it goes the driveway, our house, backyard, woods, and then that sand pile.
Right. So you can see quite a bit of sand on the driveway. This is a picture showing how the sand is sort of getting right into the bumper of the truck.
It pulls up, this is the picture of the hood, and that's all that I have.
Not seeing anything. Maybe it's still painting.
There we go.
Oh, there it is. Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you, Samantha. So thanks, Lori and Kevin, for bringing this to our attention. Clearly there's an issue with the sand, from this this site. Really, the question is for the Board of Health is what if anything can we do about it, or what options do we have to try to work with the owner of the site to try to mitigate things for the Hinckleys. So let me turn it over to you, Bill. Can you help us out with any knowledge that you have about any regulations that might affect this issue?
Yeah, there's the dust odor noise regulations. This would certainly come under dust. So we have to try to arrange a site visit and reach out to the owner, to see what he could do for mitigation. I'd recommend the Hinckleys speaking to the select board also. I'm not sure who in town issues the earth removal products permit, but my guess is there's probably some type of dust control requirement right in that permit. So I think it would be wise to pursue both jurisdictions.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't want to start offering site visits over the email systems until we met, until I knew that there was a basis for us to do a site visit.
Absolutely.
And
Yep.
it sounds like there is. So Kevin and Lori, our normal process when we are going to do a site visit for any reason really is first of all to secure the permission of the owner, which are you folks. So you can give us that permission right now if you want. Assuming we get your permission to do a site visit, then Bill will work with you folks on a schedule plan that works for you, that also works for either Melinda or I, because we like to have at least one board member present for any kind of site visit. So we would arrange to do that site visit, see what's what. Subsequent to the site visit, if we do find that there's an issue, it's quite likely that the board might decide to try to intervene with the site owner to see if there's a way for them to, in an amiable way, mitigate the situation by either moving it, covering it, or something that would relieve, the issue that you have on your property. And I think Bill makes a lot of sense with the idea of having a dual-pronged approach with trying to figure out where in the town another board or town agency has some jurisdiction over the site owner, and maybe we can work sort of in tandem with that agency.
So if we contacted the select board, would we also add you on copy? I wouldn't want you competing against each other in a way.
No, I think we can, Kevin, if you guys decide to send a letter, you could state that you've appeared before the Board of Health on March 28th, that we had a discussion about the issue, that the Board of Health is planning to do a site visit, but that it was also suggested that other avenues of mitigation be sought. And can the select board assist with what other agency or board in the town might also become involved?
Sure.
And then once we know that, then we, the board, can work with those folks to make sure that we're not stepping on each other's toes, or make sure that we have a coordinated approach. Melinda?
I just wanted to add for Kevin and Lori, I think that to repeat what Bill had said is that I think the reason for reaching out to the select board was that you want to, there's probably some dust control in the permit that they've been issued that they need to be held liable, that they could be held liable against, right, Bill? Like,
Yeah, I would again, I don't know
so
that.
would
I've never.
You want them to pull the permit, right, to see if there's some type of verbiage in there that
Right,
indicate.
I've never seen the permit. We don't issue the permit, so whatever town entity does would need to review that permit and see if there's any dust control requirements within it. And if there is, then obviously what type of what's done if there's a violation, how do you correct it? But we can also pursue the dust, odor, noise nuisance.
Right.
Yeah. If I may comment too, is I tried to go through and look at any permit application online. All I was able to find at the time was a renewal, because it's been, I think you have to renew those every 6 months, every 24 months, I believe, something along those lines. So I only saw older permits, and I didn't see anything about dust in that, whereas some other ERP permits I did see a dust control condition. So if there was no dust control condition in the ERP, I think, were you just saying that there was another avenue or possibility?
Well, the Board of Health has the dust, odor, noise regulations to enforce, along with State Department of Environmental Protection. I'm just saying that if their earth removal permit does have a dust control component, that town entity would need to enforce that also. So there's kind of a dual route here. Yep.
Thank you.
So I think what we're suggesting is try to make that inquiry very specific, that you've already seen a renewal document that was not really addressing the concern, and can the town get their hands on the original permit, which may or may not have had any other provisions for dust control. Because again, as Bill said, we, the Board of Health, don't really have a jurisdiction there. But if we do both, if both things are looked at the same time, we can see what kind of outcome we can get.
Perfect. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you both.
Yeah, I'll be in touch on a site visit.
Sure. Do we need to grant that permission now?
If you do, we could be there with or without your presence. You know, if you're not around and we can make it, we'd appreciate that. Yes.
I think I'm okay if you do that. We will be going on vacation in a couple of weeks, so if it's a couple of weeks from now, yeah, we'd like you to be able to go look.
All right. Yeah, obviously with all this rain, we want to get there at a time when it's dry and windy so we can see that situation.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's super fine sand. I think they use it a lot for septics.
I've been out there for some
Oh, yeah?
soil testing, and I must say it is exactly as you described, very
Yes.
fine and loose.
Yes. Yep.
All right, so collectively, we'll work out an inspection day and time that's convenient and appropriate for everybody, so that we can see the conditions at their quote unquote worst, or in the state that has been described as close as possible. In the meantime, you folks will try to work on the other side of things in terms of any approvals or any dust control mitigation plan that might have been filed, or just so that we have all those facts. And
Sure.
we'll take the next steps from there.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Glad you both were here. Thanks for bringing the issue to our attention. All right, I'm going to keep going out of order, just to make sure that folks that are here that have an agenda item can present it, so that they can be on their way and we can be respectful of their time. So I'm going to turn things over to Kate Hodges, who's here to talk about, I think, the DCAM property. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but I'm just going to turn it over to you, Kate.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know if I'm hoping I have the ability to share my screen. I do.
I think so, yeah.
Thank you. So I don't need to go through the whole thing because I think we've talked about this a lot, but I was tasked by the select board to speak to each committee on sort of our plans, our thoughts, our artistic renditions of what could happen at the DCAM property, which was the old industrial school for girls. And so I have had the opportunity to speak with planning, conservation, recreation, obviously the select board, finance committee. I'm sure I'm forgetting the board of assessors. And so I was hoping to get any feedback or any thoughts from the Board of Health relative to some of the conceptual plans. And I don't need that today. I'm hoping to just provide you with some of the things that have been tossed out there as possible uses for the property. We're also going to have plenty of time to have more focused conversations in public forums. But if there's something that we're missing or that we haven't addressed from a Board of Health standpoint, those would be good things to know. So as you probably know, we applied for a partnership agreement with Mass Development almost a year ago now. And so that was for $32,000 to begin the process of doing a sort of a master plan and design and a site assessment. It included a phase 1 environmental analysis. And really, after speaking with the select board and other members of the community relative to what had happened prior to my time in Lancaster, it was clear that the primary focus for this parcel's redevelopment was really on senior and deeply affordable housing, with interspersed with some single family or townhome style, and lots of open space, both programmed and non-programmed. And then the idea of maybe having some lifestyle commercial development. So this is what you will see is a myriad of several drone photos in Google Earth that we've kind of overlaid with one another. And the entire area that is in red is the totality of the DCAM parcel. Much of that is used by the RFK Alliance. So in terms of what we look for, the town focused on the yellow circled area, which contains the bulk of the existing buildings, the interior roadways, and a means of egress to and from Old Common and Still River Road. The point along Still River closest to the Bolton Flats had been discussed for many years as a future water resource site. And while nothing has happened to the date relative to that, we have determined that we would keep that as non-buildable right now, should the need rise to have it as a water source. And that's equal to about 15 acres. About 10 years ago, the town submitted interest to the state relative to acquiring just that 15-acre parcel. That never came to fruition, but the idea of having the entirety come to us certainly meets that mission. The wetlands that are bordering Still River, it's still an active 21E waste site. That's not necessarily a liability or cost that we believe the town should take on. And so I had brought that matter back to the select board, and they had voted to remove that that language about the town taking on that responsibility from the legislation. And so that amendment was made. Now, to be clear, the legislation has not passed. It's gone through its first reading, but it seems to be stuck there. I meet with a brief check-in with Mass Development and with DCAM on Tuesdays, and this Tuesday we connected and they haven't heard anything either. So I know there's a lot of pressing issues at the legislative level, but I was hopeful that something was going to come before this May's town meeting. That isn't looking like it's going to be probable. So if and when it goes through, it's very likely that we would have a special town meeting, because of course the legislation was just to file the legislation. It wasn't to purchase the property. There would need to be another town meeting. So the point of all of that is that we're a little bit far off, but it's good to know what we don't know, and to have the input of the boards and committees so that when we are in the position to decide whether we want to acquire the property or not, we're going in with eyes wide open. The areas that are superimposed on top of this show the zoning, and that's the area that is set aside for the water supply. And basically what we're focusing on is the yellow area for the majority of the development. So there were several proposed concepts. The first was lower density going to adaptive reuse, and a new construction and mixed residential with higher use and higher density. And so these are some of the concepts that we looked at just from other communities. So the lower density looks like a mix of condos or an HOA or housing development. We were looking at Ferry Landing Circle in Portsmouth, Rhode Island. I'm fully aware that Lancaster is not Portsmouth, Rhode Island, but this was a 40-acre parcel with active recreation areas that really are quite similar to what we're looking at the DCAM parcel. So the main points of that concept included the demolition of all of the buildings and clustered townhouses surrounding open space, and then public amenities, which could include a pavilion or a linear park, a playing field, and a track, and then connections to the nearby trail network. Option 2 was a mixture of adaptive reuse, similar to the former Kringle Emporium in Springfield, Massachusetts, the Prescott School Community Center in Groton, or the Schoolhouse Lofts on Adam Street in Worcester. This plan applies adaptive reuse model for some of the existing buildings that are not currently condemned. Of the 6, only 3 are usable without a great deal of mitigation and cost. But these buildings are also the ones with the historic designations, where the initial building conditions assessment didn't find major issues. Building number 4, as seen on the map to the left, is the Bateman Chapel. It was most recently used for Meals on Wheels until it was moved to a different location. Number 8 on the map is a school building currently used by the state K-9 police unit for training, and DCAM has some maps and file storage in the upper floors. And then the Campbell building is building 16, and it houses the DCAM offices in half of the ground floor. The remainder of that building is vacant and really deteriorating. Concept 3 was a more traditional construction mixed-use residential. This had main access for higher intensity uses off of Still River instead of Old Common, main access for open space, more than in concept 2, less than in concept 1. Single family residential homes as a buffer along Old Common, and then the redevelopment density increases further away from Old Common, so it sort of builds up as you enter into the property. So then I'm just skipping ahead here. So the first one is the concept here for some mock-ups, and this was solely residential. So this has about 100 units. Each of the buildings has potentially 4 units each. There was a thought that some of the buildings within the development may only have 2 units versus 4 for accessibility. It was proposed to have some 2-unit buildings so that some of the units could be larger in square footage than others, giving people less or more space depending on the number of family members. Excuse me. Circulation within the site was all inside. There was no access from Old Common except for the pre-existing emergency drive. The concept, as you can see, has a lot of green space. The buildings are laid out in a manner which have some having driveways into garages and some without. Therefore, for the ones without, parking would be on street. It's about 180 spaces for parking, but there's enough area to expand that should one of the regulatory boards want that. The public space that we have here has a playing field along with some sports courts, a tennis court large enough to be double lined for pickleball, and then some basketball courts, a play area, and parking surrounding that. This concept is the most mindful of density, meaning in terms of people and housing, it maximizes the additional community space with the form of active recreation and really has the least number of persons sort of in this acreage. So in a nutshell, it is 17 townhomes that are about 1,500 square feet each for 60 units total, 12 townhomes of 2,250 square feet, including a garage for another 100 units. This is concept 2, more of a mixed use concept with the reuse of the 3 buildings that I went over before. This differs from the first concept because the focus is having actually some single family homes here along Old Common. So for those 8 homes, their driveways would be off Old Common. Part of the development would really look and feel more external to the rest of the site. And then moving into the site, there'd be a small entrance for additional single family homes within a cul-de-sac. And then going further into the site, it would step up to townhouses for additional residential units. And in this concept, we'd be looking at 17 townhomes with 60 units. The sizing would be the same as described in concept 1 with the 1,500 and 2,200 square foot unit mix. It's programmed a bit smaller in terms of play spaces, and it had no, formal playground play area. The office here, which is number 4, could be used for senior housing. It could fit 16 units with the existing building condition in the stories that it currently has. The parking lot, fully programmed, would have about 25 parking spots there. The mixed development bulk that's located here with the 2 L-shaped buildings would be residential, 2-story apartment buildings. They would be thought of accommodating ground floor parking. So technically it would be 3 stories, but the ground floor would be the parking with the housing on top of it. Middle would also be residential, the reuse of the school. That is estimated at 3 stories, so 18 units of housing. And then across, there would be room for some light commercial development, somewhere in the neighborhood of the reused chapel of 7,500 square feet. And then 2 additional buildings that could be programmed for commercial use, which would give us a total of about 21,000 square feet for commercial use. There's slightly more commercial square footage in this than there is in the next concept 3. But we're trying to be realistic in terms of density and build out. So of course, it's a trade-off. More commercial means less residential. So overall, this is 168 residential units with about 30,000 in commercial square footage and parking of about 350. So then the final concept is a little different in terms of the size of the buildings and density. Here, there still are several single-family homes along Old Common, but the housing is turned the opposite way so that the circulation is all internal rather than having the driveways along Old Common. It's then stepped back into townhomes as the next layer of density. And looking at the number 4 area, we have the senior housing that's existing, but then we would have an additional building. That would be 26 total units of senior housing between the 2. Playing fields are still present and a linear park down the middle. That would be the only programmed open space, active recreation, passive recreation. The concept in this section, which is the top right across from the park, would be 3-story apartments. They would have the most density, of course, located in an area deep within the parcel. They would have external parking for the units that you could enter. It would have 110 rental units between the 3 buildings. The building on the right is actually slightly larger than the other 2, which is here. This one is larger. That would be, there would be more units per that floor, but overall, again, about 110. Then we move to the 4 smaller commercial units that are in the square shapes right here. And the shape here, that's a rectangle. They're between 3,000 and 3,500 square feet. And then the largest one is 9,000 square feet. Those are all programmed to be 1 story. So overall, this concept is 198 residential units with about 20,000 square feet of commercial space and parking for about 400. So again, these are just the 3 concepts sort of laid out. Going from the lowest density to the highest density. Clearly, this has more open space. Concept 3 has less. This has the most open space. Concept 2 has the most commercial space, but again, the trade-off is less residential. So really, again, I'm just looking for some feedback. It doesn't have to be now. I'm happy to send you this presentation so you can take a look at it. Anything that we're missing or should think of from a Board of Health perspective, understanding that the demolition of historic buildings will require close coordination if we choose to do that with Mass Historical. The redevelopment will most certainly trigger a MEPA review, as well as probably a NEPA review and permitting. Pre-development and redevelopment actions will likely trigger our own local permitting processes, including CONSCOM, Planning Board. If in fact we want to look at a mixed use development, there's some zoning that needs to go in, and we will need to understand our potential for environmental liability just along Still River and Old Common, as the flatlands there need to be protected. And of course, we don't want to touch the site there that's still being remediated. And we need to understand from a town perspective how much land we want for open space and recreation, because we actually have to pay the state the appraised value of that. So the more open space that we take that is programmed, so the linear park doesn't necessarily count because it's part of the development, but the other parts that are programmed, understanding that we have to have that appraised, and then we would have to come up with the cash to pay the state for that. So that is what I thought was a brief presentation that is somewhat longer than I thought, but and I'm happy to answer questions now or wait until you all have had a chance to look this over again.
Well, thank you very much, Kate, for taking the time to present all that to us. Much appreciated. I think it would be helpful, at least for me and probably the other board members, to get a copy of the presentation so we can sort of take a little bit more time to think it through. And I just want to reinforce that really our role in reviewing the options and in commenting would be certainly from a Board of Health perspective, not as a private citizen perspective, and we may have other opinions that we can express in other venues. But probably, I mean, the Board of Health vector is probably most likely going to be along the lines of water, sewer, water resources, that kind of thing. And those kind of plans are about 37 steps away from where you guys are now anyway, and would always be factored in whatever design and engineering plans that might be forthcoming. So, yeah, I don't have really anything else to add it to this or to request other than copies of it, and maybe a turnaround time. Do you have an idea of, I need any questions or comments by a certain date kind of a thing from us?
I really don't. Like I said, we're still sort of waiting for it to go through the legislative process. So the more we can refine and sort of understand what we need to dig into and what the community would say just as a whole, separate from the boards and regulatory agencies, like what people would say they don't want to entertain will help us when and if we get to the point where we want to acquire the property. I think, speaking plainly, what we're looking to do is to own it for the least amount of time possible, because there's a great deal of expense relative to that. So, I would say that you have a few months for sure. And I can get you all of the information to look over that. And, this absolutely, to your point, will not be anywhere close to the last conversation. I think we're just trying to get to a point where when the legislature does pass the language, that we can have a concept that the community generally feels comfortable with, enough so that we can, refine it and go with that. So I'm happy to send that over to Sam. She can distribute it. And if you guys need anything else, you have any other questions and you want to reach out to me, I'm happy to get you an answer as best I can.
Thanks, Kate. As long as you're still here, Melinda, did you have anything that you wanted to ask right now, or any questions right now that you want to pose?
No, I will very much like a copy of the presentation too,
Yeah.
please, Kate, and I will email you with any comments that I have. That's okay? I'll email you.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep, absolutely.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Kate. All right. I am going to assume, unless somebody unmutes and tells me otherwise, that both Kelly, Sheila, and David, and Susan are all here in listen-only mode, and that you're not here for a specific agenda item.
That's correct.
Good to see you as always, Susan. All right. Fantastic. All right. So why don't we go through, let's get back to our regular agenda. Let's go back to our permits bill, 320 Bolton Road.
Sam, did you get a plan for that?
That's the right one, right?
Yes. So if you've been up and down Bolton Road, you probably see this house is being completely rebuilt. And this is the proposed septic system that's being designed to handle it. The only unique thing about the proposal is it was too wet to do a percolation test the day we did the soil testing. So they did request that local upgrade approval. to allow a sieve test to be done, and that's what's being used for the basis of that design of that bed. So there's a 1,500-gallon tank out back by gravity, a 1,000-gallon pump chamber that will then pump up to that bed.
Okay. Anything else about this that's unusual that we should consider, or should we just go ahead and let you execute on this and sign for the board?
The only thing unusual is the person building the home would like 4 bedrooms. To have 4 bedrooms, you have to fully comply with Title V, which we could not do because of the water table. If it dries out enough and we can do a percolation test, then they may go for that 4-bedroom design. But right now, this is what's being proposed because it was too wet to perk. It's an existing 3-bedroom home, and that's what it has to remain because they cannot fully comply with the state code.
All right, so it could hypothetically come back to the board at a later date if they decide to upgrade to 4 bedrooms.
Right. If we're able to do a perk test, then it might go to a 4. Yep.
Okay. All right, that seems reasonable. I'm fine with that. Melinda, any thoughts, comments, questions?
No, I'm okay. Thank you.
All right. We're happy to have you move forward on this one, Bill. And if they do change and ask for a perk and it perks to 4 bedrooms, then we'll look forward to seeing this back on the agenda.
Correct.
All right.
So just for the minutes, Phil, you're gonna give them the permit for the 3-bedroom and we might see it back for a 4.
Right. I'll draft a permit, sign it for the board, and again, depending on timing, we may be back with a 4-bedroom. Yep.
All right. Thanks, Bill. How about 57 Bigelow Road?
That was a home that was proposing finished space in the basement, requiring a sewage ejector pump, which the current code requires a 1,500-gallon tank minimum for a pump to be used. And that home only had a 1,000, so they put in a new 1,500-gallon tank to allow for that sewage ejector pump to be used in the basement bathroom. So that's just a permit for a tank replacement.
All right. No specific action necessary on our part. You can just proceed with that as long as the board's okay with it, which I think we probably are.
Yeah, I'll draft a permit and can sign it for the board. Yep.
All right. Fantastic. We've already done 255 Mill Street Extension. And we've got another one for Sterling Street, a trapping permit that I think came our way via the DPW, right?
Correct. I heard from Scott McDonald. They wanted to remove some beaver. The culvert under Sterling Street near Chase Hill Road. I did go out and observe beaver activity plugging that culvert. I don't know if that photo's handy, Sam. If not, it's it's a common spot. Usually issuing permits there each spring to allow those animals to be removed, so it does not negatively impact the culvert under Sterling Street. So this is a 10-day emergency permit that's going to start tomorrow.
Okay. And to your point, we've issued these types of permits in the past for similar reasons, and maybe even in the same place.
Yeah, this could be the second or third at least, but again, it's like each year you hit this time of year, and that's when we see the activity, and that's when the permit's issued to remove the animals and allow that culvert to work the way it should.
So we issue we agree to issue an emergency permit that goes back to DPW, and who bears the cost of hiring and having somebody do the mitigation?
That's a question for the DPW. I would assume that the town pays for it because it's a town culvert. If a trapping permit's being issued on private property, then it's that private property owner that's paying.
Gotcha. Makes sense. All right. Melinda, questions, comments, concerns?
I just have a question. You said it's a 10-day permit, Bill?
It's a 10-day emergency trapping permit that allows for trapping out of season if it's not trapping season, and also allows the outlawed traps to be used.
what happens if they don't catch the animal in that 10 days?
They can request another extension.
Okay. And is that a 10-day extension?
I think it's a 10 and then they can go 30, but that's a different form. And I think the Division of Fisheries and Wildlife might become involved when a 30-day is requested. But that would be like the third step. Normally, this first permit is usually successful. But again, we won't know that until the 10 days is up.
Right. And then if it has to be extended, does that come back to the board, or can you do that?
Well, again, I've issued these for the board. Many years ago, the board gave me the authority to sign permits that only needed one signature. Here's an example. The other would be building permits without questions. So I've issued this permit, and yes, if there's a 10-day extension requested, I'd get another application and issue another permit.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, makes sense. Sounds good to me. Thank you, Bill.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on to Title V inspection reports, we have 329 White Pond Road.
Yes, that's a conditional pass, and it needs a septic tank and a distribution box replacement. So we'll probably see permit for that work at a future meeting.
Okay. All right, so we go on to our discussion items.
Yes.
So the first one is 566 Harvard Road. I'm going to make this report quite brief. Just to summarize quickly, we had an issue that came to the Board of Health, resulting in a letter from the board to the property owner requesting an inspection. Property owner had initially responded that they did not give consent. The town became involved, and of the latest event was that the property owner has sent a letter back notifying the town and the Board of Health that the situation is being resolved by removing the trailer, and the property owner has invited an inspection to prove that point when that does happen. And so that really sort of closes the issue. The board does want to be able to do an inspection to demonstrate that the trailer and the individual residing in the trailer are no longer there at whatever point that is resolved. And that's really it on that issue. I think we can probably close this one from the board's business at this point, because there's really no action on our part to take right now, since the property owner has agreed to the conditions that were originally requested, which is an inspection. Questions, comments, concerns? All right. 489 Neck Road, another trailer on property issue. Bill, do you want to summarize that situation for us?
Yes, Melinda and I did do an inspection there. Might have been a week ago. Again, owner and occupant present. Right off the bat, talked about temporary housing not being allowed without prior written permission from the Board of Health, but also did inspect the trailer just to hit some of the important sections of the housing code that weren't being met. So in the field that day, an inspection was done, handwritten report is done, was given a copy was given to the owner, and I will be drafting an order which will state everything that's in that handwritten order, go to the owner certified and to the occupant regular mail. But pretty much the occupancy of the temporary housing would have to cease.
There was agreement, Bill, by the current occupant as well as the owner that occupancy will cease or has ceased, or?
I think they understand that it has to cease. Whether or not it has ceased, I do not know, but we can investigate that.
So is there a next step then for this one, Bill, or
Well, I guess we would see what type of response we get from the certified mailing to the owner.
Okay. All right, so the status is we've done an inspection, we've sent a letter specifying that the need to vacate the trailer, and
We
we
will
need to
be
wait for
sending a letter.
response.
I haven't drafted
Okay.
that letter. I haven't had a chance to do that, but it's on the top of my list. But again, they were told in the field and given a handwritten copy of the report, so they understand the situation.
Yep. All right. Sounds good. Questions, comments, concerns about this one, Melinda? Thank you for going to with Bill on the inspection. Much appreciated, by the way.
Yes, I do appreciate it.
Very good. As long as we're talking about trailers, let's jump down to item number H on the discussion list, Brockelman Road trailer update. Let me summarize what I think I know, and then Melinda and/or Bill can fill things in. So it came to the attention of the board that there's a property on Brockelman Road which contains a trailer, numerous tarps that are suspended from trees by lines and wires, and other old cars and other items on this property. And there was a concern that somebody might be living in this area. We did have the police involved, and based on discussion, investigation of ownership records, etc., it was determined that there is an individual who owns the property, who actually owns two properties, another property, I believe, nearby, which does have a house on it, as well as this property, who chooses to use this property on Brockelman Road to stay periodically. And that's about as much as I know. Have I missed anything, Bill and/or Melinda, or anybody else that knows anything about this one?
No, that sounds like the situation.
Okay. So we don't have any evidence that this is being occupied as a permanent residence. In fact, I believe we have information from Detective Shaw's report that states the owner says that he uses both places for his residences, and that he feels he should be entitled to do that. I'm not sure that there's a basis for the board to disagree with that, but it is, we do have it here for discussion and comment. Certainly not clear to me that there's any immediate public safety, public health, or personal health risk going on. Questions, comments, concerns?
Well, I have a question. I guess I would. What is the difference between the other trailer issues and this trailer issue, except for the fact that the man owns the property? If he's utilizing the trailer for, and he's admitted to, spending some time there, don't the requirements still apply to that living situation of
Well, I think
sanitation and electricity and having a written letter from the Board of Health to be able to occupy the trailer? Do those rules not apply? And if not, is it only solely because he doesn't own the property? And because he does own the property? I guess
I'm not sure it's so much that because he owns the property as it is because he has a a main residence that's a normal, or I should say a house that presumably meets all standard housing code requirements that he also uses. So it sounds more like a situation. It's quite a bit different than the other ones in that those occupants were occupying those trailers as their full-time residents. And in this case, it sounds to me, and maybe I'm reading between the lines too much, but I don't think so, that this is more like an individual who has alternatives to his living situation and likes to exercise his desire to use either one at any given time, depending on his personal choice. So it's kind of like, if I owned a camp, and I wish I did, but if I owned a camp in Maine that had a trailer on it, and I would go up there every once in a while and I just sort of camp out, but I also spending most of my time in my own house, that I'm probably not subject to Board of Health intervention because of that sort of personal choice. So that's what I see as the difference. I don't know, Bill, do you want to comment on that? It may be a combination of both the multiple living situations that the individual has, as well as the ownership issue.
I'm just looking at the definition of a dwelling unit in the housing code is a room or group of rooms within a residence used or intended for use by individual, family, or household for living, sleeping, cooking, eating. Again, I think if the board was to pursue this, they'd probably want to talk to town council about whether or not this would be considered temporary housing. If he's living in a home and spending time on this property, it's not his primary residence. So, again, I think we might need a legal opinion on that.
If we were to do something, I think we've already gotten a not testimony, but a statement from police who've done an investigation stating that he has alternative residence and uses one versus the other when he chooses to. So if we wanted to force him to not do that, we would have to go to the town and give them a reason why we think he should be barred from doing that, being able to spend some time on his the trailer occupied piece of property, and let them decide to whether they want to take legal action against him or not.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I mean, based on what I've seen from the police and what we know about the situation, personally, I don't see a reason to pursue it. But and actually, we've only got two people here today. So, Melinda, if you disagree, we'll probably have to put this on the agenda for the next board meeting to get a vote. But I'm not sure what your position is at this point with it.
I don't think I have a position. I think my position is that I want to ensure that the Board of Health acts in a consistent manner. And I just want to, my question of making sure that, the situation is either, just so we have a consistent approach. That's all.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. I agree. I think the consistency. I mean, using your own example, this is a different situation than the other two trailer issues on our agenda for today. In that both of the issues were entirely different. In that A, they were using the trailer as their permanent residence, and B, they did not own the property. So I think if we agree,
how do you, and it really comes down to he said, she said. It sounds like to me, he says he's not using it as his permanent residence. So therefore we trust that he's not using it as his permanent residence. So, that's
Right.
that's the best we can do, I suppose.
Well, it probably is unless we have good reason to believe there's a significant danger, and then we want to ask the town to take legal action to pursue it. I don't know if that means they'd have to post a guard on the property to make sure he's not there 24/7, 365. I have no idea. But yeah, I think we do have to take people at a certain extent at face value, especially if they've given a statement to the police, which is, there. I don't think most people would do that lightly. So we have to, normally assume that people are not being disingenuous when they're telling us what their story is.
I wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah.
However, the data does state that he has burned his trailer down twice with a space heater. So that does put some threat to the community, and should not be taken lightly.
Right, and the police were aware of that as well. Okay, well, again, I'm not personally feeling moved to suggest to the town that they take legal action in this particular situation. So I think we can, unless there's disagreement, I think we can, move forward with it and see, if we get additional information that makes us concerned for from a different vector, then we can always readdress it if we need to.
Agree?
Yeah. All right. Any other questions or comments or concerns? If not, we can close this issue. We have no other trailer issues to contend with, at least today. Knock on wood. So let's keep going with our agenda. Let's go up to item number D under number 3. Item number D. Item letter D under number 3 discussion, which is 700 Fort Pond Road, United Ag and Turf. And the sum and substance of that one, I'm going to try to summarize it. Back in November, this came before the Board of Health, and the United Ag and Turf at 700 Fort Pond Road had proposed, in addition to the property, which decommissioned the existing septic tank and pump chamber and the installation of a new one. Permits were issued. The Board of Health and Neshoba never received an as-built plan. The system had been put in quite some time ago. The board informed the town, based on the annual licensing process feedback form that we get, about the fact that the property was out of compliance. In December, we readdressed the issue, and we sent a certified letter, return receipt requested, to the owners of United Ag and Turf. We did receive the green card back. But we never heard anything from the owner about it. In January, we noted that there was still no response actually from the engineering firm, from the owner, or from the select board at that point. So we drafted yet another letter, this time to the town administrator and the select board, notifying them that the business is out of compliance. And what we've done to try to get them in, what we, the Board of Health, has done to try to get them into compliance. We also noted in our letter that we assumed that the town had issued a business license to United Ag and Turf, even though they were technically not in compliance. And in February, the issue was up on our agenda again. And I believe that at this point, we have determined from the select board that, in fact, the business, United Ag and Turf, never did return the application for licensure for this year. So if that's, and if everything that I'm saying is true, then essentially where we're at is we have United Ag and Turf open for business without a certificate of compliance for their septic tank and pump chamber, and operating without a business license from the town. So let me stop there and make sure that all of that history and current state is correct before we get into a discussion of what should be done next.
I think that's accurate, Jeff. I'm just not sure about the selectmen's portion of it. I guess I haven't seen that, but I don't know if they have any, what their enforcement action would be, if any, if a business is operating without a license. Because we've taken action against the installer by suspending his ability to work in Lancaster, and I've also our office won't be issuing his installer's license for 2024 for our entire district.
Okay. All right. So we've taken that action. And maybe I can ask Samantha to comment on what she knows directly, or either directly through conversation or from whatever documentation we might have from either the TA or the select board about the business license for United Ag and Turf.
Yep, 1 second. So I had correspondence with Kathy Rocco on March 4th, which basically, she said that United Ag and Turf, oh, hold on, that's 1 second. Okay, so yes, correspondence on March 4th. And Kathy said with regards to 700 Fort Pond Road, United Ag and Turf, they never returned their application for a Class 1 license. And as it stands now, they do not have a Class 1 license. She was going to speak with Mike Silva, our building commissioner, regarding the matter, and he would be reviewing it.
You faded out at the very end there, Samantha. Your voice is going in and out as you move back and forth.
Did you say
What was
after
the
Mike
last thing
Silva?
you said?
So she was going to speak with Mike Silva, our buildings commissioner, regarding the matter, and he would be reviewing it
When was that?
on March 4th.
March 4th. No response from
Okay.
Mike?
I'm not sure. I wasn't included on the conversation that she was going to have with Mike. I don't know if it was, a direct conversation or an email.
So I also, after I heard this from Samantha, I sent a letter and I copied, sent a letter to Mike Silva on yesterday. Hi, Mike. If United Ag and Turf is not licensed by the town, should they be allowed to serve the public? Seems like a potential liability issue outside of the other issue the Board of Health has with the lack of certificate of compliance for a replaced septic and pump chamber. Your thoughts? So, and that was attached to the email that Kathy had sent Samantha, which says, again, hi, Sam. I'm not sure if the Board of Health realizes that under Massachusetts general law. Oh, this is, okay, that's about something else. With regards to 700 Fort Pond Road, United Ag and Turf never returned an application. Now stands they do not have one. So I think what we want to do at this point is let Mike Silva respond either to Kathy Rocco or to me directly and see where he stands on it. But quite frankly, unless there are things about this situation that I don't understand or that I don't know or that I'm not privy to, on the face of it, we have a business who has upgraded their septic and pump chamber without they do not have a certificate of compliance for it, nor are they operating with a license to do business in the town of Lancaster. And hypothetically, that seems like that should not be allowed. But I think we need to wait and hear we need to go through a deliberate process of first letting Mike Silva respond, see what he says. Based on his response, I think then we would go back to the select board and say, based on the Board of Health's review of the facts, based on what Mr. Silva has said, based on his review of the facts, here are our recommendations about next steps with regard to United Ag and Turf. But it certainly doesn't make sense to me, again, on the surface, without knowing any other factors that might be relevant, that we should be having a business running in Lancaster without a license. To me, that sounds like a liability issue for the town. Thoughts, comments, questions?
I would agree, Jeff. If other businesses are being held to that standard, they all should be.
Yeah. Okay. So
I guess I just have a question. Regardless, Mike comes back, he says no, he says, this, that, to Bill's point, they should be held to that standard. Let's just, for purposes of discussion, say Mike comes back and says, no, can't operate like that. What is our next step? What can we do? Or is this back to the select board?
no, not necessarily. I mean, I don't really like to talk in hypotheticals, but it's a reasonable question. And the answer is that if Mike Silva has nothing else to offer, and if there's no other facts that we can determine about a reason why this business is operating without a license, then the Board of Health certainly has the capacity to force the business to cease and desist. Hypothetically.
Based on the issue with the septic and the not having the certificate of compliance, or based on the fact that they don't have a permit with the town?
It would be the Title V violation that we'd be pursuing.
Right.
We'd have jurisdiction over the business
Right.
license.
Right, exactly.
We can only deal with issues that we have jurisdiction over. But it could be that once we, again, we need to take the process step by step, as I said earlier, and there may be a whole other outcome based on whatever those steps are. It could be that the outcome is the town decides to take action against the business because of the lack of a license. And that might supersede the certificate of compliance issue that the board has.
Okay, yeah, that's what I'm trying to understand, like where this, obviously we're going to revisit it some way, shape, or form. So
right. We had a similar situation. I don't want to get too deep into this, but we had a similar situation with another business in the town where the Board of Health had a problem with this business from a COVID-19 compliance perspective, but it turned out the town had an even bigger issue with the business with regard to building code issues. And we allowed those building code issues to supersede the Board of Health issues because they were sort of even more weighty, and that business was acted upon based on sort of that priority. But again, the Board of Health, in the absence of those kinds of violations, the Board of Health could have quite easily issued a cease and desist order against the business for those COVID-19 violations.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so I think we'll keep this one on the agenda. We'll wait and see what the outcome is from Mike Silva, and we'll come back to it. Any other comments before we move to our next item? All right, letter E, James Monroe. I won't go review all of the documentation on this one, but the short version of this is that this was a business who received a fine from the DEP because of some technical violations they had. They had made an arrangement with the DEP to allow a portion of what was to be a fine to be paid instead of to the DEP, to be paid to the town of Lancaster, hypothetically for use in any town projects that might have to do with hazardous waste disposal. We had thought this was a wonderful idea. We had written it up. We had sent letters to the select board requesting that they consider this. And basically time went by. The issue was never put on the agenda, at least to my knowledge, for the select board. And in the meantime, the business owner was forced to settle the fine with the DEP, which they have done. So there's no longer really a Board of Health concern here. There's nothing that can be done because the issue has been settled between the business owner and the DEP. The business is operating legitimately, legally, and that's really it. Hopefully that made sense. If it didn't, I'll, happy to answer any questions or concerns if I can.
Just for clarification, it was never brought to the select board's agenda. Kathy Rocco said because under Mass General Law, monies received have to go to the general fund. Only donations and gifts can be used for specific requests. So I think that was the hang up.
Right, and I don't think we were aware of that until by the time the issue had already been resolved anyway, so.
Yeah.
All right. So we can take this one off of our agenda. The next one is 1263 North Main Street, septic system upgrade status bill.
Yeah, that was a failed Title V. The 2 years to upgrade the system was January 5th, 2024. The owner has had soil testing done, plan prepared, permit issued, but not installed. So we'll have to reach out in writing to see what the time frame is for installation. I have been contacted by an installer to get a copy of the permit, so that might be in motion, but the 2 years has gone by that the state code allows, so we need to find out what the plan is there.
Okay, so keep this one on the agenda until.
Yes.
Quick question, Bill. So, the 2 years is up and we're keeping a close eye on it. Is that all we can do? I mean, what is
Nope. No, if the owner chooses not to work with the board, then you could pursue violation of Title V and violation of housing code.
And then what does that lead to?
The board could choose to condemn, go to housing court, then it's in the court's hands. I mean, there's a couple different avenues. But again, I think an attempt to talk to the owner is a good first step.
Sure. Just trying to wrap my head around the process. So.
Yep.
Thank you.
All righty. The next item, we're expecting Jim Gareffi from Neshoba Associated Boards of Health at 11 or thereabouts, so we'll wait for him. He wants to present, I think he's going around to all the town boards to present some changes to the bylaws update based on the closure of the nursing services arm of the organization. But I don't want to speak for him, so we'll wait until he comes. Rockelman Road we've done, Grant Way we've done. There's a couple of other issues that are not on the agenda that I do want to talk about, but item number 4, calendar year 2023 Board of Health Annual Report. That's just a carryover from previous month. That report was written, it was circulated for comments, and it was sent to the town for processing. So that is complete. There's nothing else to be done there. Some other items, probably the biggest one is representation by the board on various committees or agencies. And this is going to have to happen formally in May after the elections when the board reorganizes. John Farnsworth has been serving in a temporary capacity to fill Denise Hurley's vacated seat from her resignation. He has been serving as the Lancaster Board of Health representative to Neshoba Associated Boards of Health. So that entity, Jim Gareffi's organization, meets, I think, 6 or 7 times, 6 times a year, I think. It's not monthly. Do you know, Bill?
It's at least
I think it's-
quarterly. I don't know if it's more often than
Yeah.
that.
See, it's either
Quarterly.
4 or 6 times a year, so it's not a lot of meetings. But John has been doing this for quite a long time, and I think he would like to stop doing it. So we need a volunteer, ideally, to do that. Melinda.
I've registered for tonight's meeting. I'm there. Don't
All
worry,
right.
Jeff. I'll take over
Wow.
your 2 FEP2. Don't worry.
You gonna take over FEP also?
Yes.
What
Why
a trooper!
not? Load it on.
All right. Kudos to Melinda for volunteering to do that. Like I said, once we get into May after the elections, we can rethink things for the Board of Health. We're going to have a vote on officers again. Maybe time for a new chairman. We're going to have a new member. It's pretty obvious what's going to happen because there's only one person running. Very fortunately for us and for the town, that is Sheila Millette, who I believe is here, unless she's maybe doing something else. But she's not. She cannot be here or speak as a candidate. But I'm allowed to acknowledge the fact that she's on the ticket, and if she gets at least one vote, she's going to be elected to the Board of Health seat that was vacated by Denise Hurley. I have already started to send her items of interest, not items of Board of Health business per se, but items of information. So as a fairly long-term board member by now, I've accumulated a lot of resources, and I want to make sure that Melinda and Sheila have all of those so that they can choose to, and also those things routinely go to Kelly Dolan and Samantha as well. I just want to make sure that the board has all the kinds of information that might be of interest to the board and or to the town. So I've been sending those kinds of things to Sheila as well as John and Melinda. Am I seeing 2 Melindas right now?
Sorry, yeah. I have to leave at 11 to get my kids, so I'm logging on so I don't log off.
Gotcha.
So I gotta log off one and log on the other so you don't see me disconnect.
All right, so you're going to be going to the board meeting tonight, the Neshoba meeting tonight with John.
I'm gonna be on Zoom.
Okay, close enough.
I can't make it to air by 7. My nurse leaves at 7, so I'm gonna do the best I can.
That's more than enough. So much appreciated.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. The other thing that is that we can talk about very, very briefly, it doesn't require any kind of decisions or votes or anything, is the blood drive. So we had a presentation, I think it was last month, either last month or the month before, about the blood drive. And gosh, I'm blanking out on her name now. We have a senior high school student,
Amalia.
Amalia, who had done a very nice presentation and proposal to incorporate, ideally to incorporate a blood drive as part of the health fair that Health and Human Services is putting on in April. Unfortunately, there was some communication issues, and the Red Cross is unable to provide the donation van on the same day. So there was a decision made to essentially postpone the blood drive for another date and make it sort of a freestanding event. So what I've done is I've sent a note to Kate and Steve Kerrigan asking them to allow me to present, to have a slot at the next select board meeting to request and secure approval for the town to host a blood drive by the Red Cross on Tuesday, May 21st from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. The Red Cross van is slated to be located in front of the town hall library in that area there near the town common. And this is basically a change from the previous plan of having the blood drive be part of the health and wellness fair on April 19th. So I am planning to go to the board meeting to do that. I don't expect it to be a big deal. And that should proceed as planned. And right on time is Jim Gareffi. Jim, welcome to the Lancaster Board of Health meeting. We are happy to have you and prepared to give you whatever time you need to tell us about any changes that we should be aware of for one of our favorite partners on the SHOBA Associated Boards of Health.
Jeff, thank you for that nice warm welcome. I really appreciate that. So what I wanted to do, and I'll take just a little bit of your time because I know I looked at your agenda and it looks like you had quite a bit. I wanted just a brief updates on the agency and the things that we're doing and an opportunity for any feedback from you all as well. So the first thing I mentioned, and board members, I hope you received in the mail, a big packet of information about the meeting which we're having tonight. One of those documents were the proposed bylaw changes. And I wanted to first touch on that. As part of the Public Health Excellence Grant, one of our work plan goals was to take a look at our governance, the agency's governance. And so that in conjunction with the loss of Neshoba Nursing and Hospice, it seemed to be the right time to take a look at the bylaws, clean them up, get them to a point where they actually represent all of the things that we're actually doing right now. And so what we did is myself, Terry, and Sharon Veazey took a first crack at the what we thought needed to come and go based on just our experience operating with the agency. So that document you have is kind of a first pass, and hopefully it's not too gross. I mean, it's I think 3 different colors to kind of indicate what we got now, what we're taking out, what we think we might put in there. So again, the process in our mind is that tonight we'll probably talk about it at our meeting. I will just kind of explain why in more detail, the different sections. We would like to get as much feedback from all the boards and board members as possible. And then hopefully we can come back with a revised document that the board is comfortable with. And with any luck, maybe have something to consider at our annual meeting in June. So that's kind of our timeline. Again, I wanted the document to be out there so people could look at it. And Sharon, I think, like I said, I think she put it in different colors. So hopefully it was a little easier to read back and forth. You don't have to come to the meeting for that, though we'd love to have you. But if you want to send comments, emails are great because that's a nice way I can go back and put them all in the file and make sure we incorporate people's ideas as we move forward with that. One of the things that's always kind of a sticking point for us is our current bylaws have a quorum of 5. We have 16 towns, and typically, and each town has a vote based on the bylaws. Quorums are generally one additional over half the number, and so we've had that number for the longest time. And even our agency council said, "How do you do that?" And it's like, that's the way the bylaws have been written. So again, it's a broader discussion. It's a challenge to get more than 6 towns to attend a meeting. So I don't know. That's one we have to think long and hard about. So that's the bylaw update. I don't know if anybody has any questions about that, or certainly let me know. The other thing I wanted to update the board on is the PHE grant. So as you know, we have been the recipient of a grant from the Department of Public Health, a Public Health Excellence Grant. Try to help all health departments. The goal is to get everybody to the same level of service for the people in the state. And so they have generously provided money to the agency to work on your behalf. From that money, we have a full-time communications and education specialist, Jenna Montgomery, who probably all of you have seen her name once or twice, probably even today once or twice. She, I think, is doing a really good job of trying to keep people informed about a variety of topics and subject matters, and she's available to help with our education type work in the office. Her and Bridget work together with the academic public health department to come up with some food service signs that were multi-different languages. You know, one of the problems we were finding is that you go into a place and maybe the dishwasher temperatures weren't working. And so now they're kind of at a point where they're not sanitizing properly. And if they have a 3-bay sink, that's an easy fix if you know how to do it. And it's not rocket science. So what we did is put together signs in different languages that that are laminated, they can post it above the sink in case that happens. So and then I think we did, I'm not sure if it was hand washing signs or temperature signs. Again, just something that multiple languages, because we understand the nature of the folks that are working in the restaurant services. And again, we want to try to make sure we can get our message out in a number of different ways. We have, again, with that grant, we've also hired a full-time health agent who now works in Shirley and Lunenburg and doing a wonderful job. In January, we hired another full-time health agent who is going through training right now. All of us in the office are mentoring, and he's going to be taking the soil evaluation course starting mid-April. So hopefully we'll have another person to be able to deploy to the field shortly. The goal is to try to have more staff, so there's more of us for you. Again, whether it's we kind of peel off sections that we can have or expand things that we're already doing, that's really our goal. We also have a very part-time food inspector who helps try to keep up the food service numbers. We would like to have more of her part-time, but she also has another part-time job that we're kind of competing with. So we'll probably revisit that, but that's helped us keep the numbers up, make sure that our presence is in those food service establishments as often as possible. The grants also allowed us to buy food service inspectional software. So in addition to trying to do more of the inspections, we're also able to do them electronically. So we can then search and sort for violations and hopefully come up with things that are happening, trends that we can work with the establishments, hopefully to make them better. So that's been helpful as well. I don't know if there's any questions on the PHE grant. Okay, then I will keep moving on. The last thing I wanted to talk to you about was the assessments. And I know this year the assessments are high. Unfortunately, we've had just, like everybody else, costs have gone up. Fees don't always keep up with that, and it's with the kind of the slowing economy, the fees are a little bit more challenging this year. We're also trying to have the assessments and the fees balanced so that if we find times that are slower, that we always have the finances to be able to provide the staff that we're providing to everybody. But also, as everybody else, health insurance costs, I think we're 10% increases the past 2 years. So again, it wasn't something that we wanted to do, but it was something the board decided to do to try to get us to a point where we get kind of a zero budget. We don't have to worry about losses in any given year. The other thing we're trying to do with the closing of the nursing association is a right size overhead staff, administrative staff. We have a financial officer, we have an IT person, we have somebody who does our HR. We probably don't need them both full time, but we do need some of them to help us with that work. So we're trying to figure out what the best mix of that will be, so that we can put that number in the budget accordingly. One last thing, because we're going to try to move our Neshoba meetings a little bit so that the December meeting, the budget meeting, is earlier in December as opposed to early in January. It seems most towns are clamoring for budget numbers as early as November. So we figure if we can get it into December, that first week or so, hopefully we can get those numbers to you faster, and so you can work with your towns with those. The board in January, when we were talking about the budget, also asked me to take a look at fees that we charge for services. So I did a fee review. I will present those to the board meeting tonight. I can also send out that information as well. So I don't know if there's any questions on that.
Not for me.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions?
So really appreciate you. Have you covered all of your issues, Jim, or not?
I did. Those are the big three. I figured. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
But no, I really appreciate you coming to cover all those things. It's great to be up to date on what's happening with Neshoba Associated Boards of Health. Appreciate all the pressures that the agency is under. It's a tough time. Just not so parenthetically, so that you know, the Lancaster board is making a change. John Farnsworth, who's been representing us for quite some time, who's currently a temporary board member filling in for a vacancy. He's going to transition his role representing us to Neshoba, and is bringing along with him tonight, not physically but over Zoom, our Melinda Apgar, who's waving right now. So Melinda has graciously volunteered to take over for John. She's been quite an active board member, going out on inspections with Bill and doing all kinds of other things. So working on our air sensor project and several other projects. So very, very happy that Melinda's stepping up to do that. So there'll be a joint appearance technically tonight, and then Melinda will take over from there.
No, that's great news. Thank you very much. It's really nice to have multiple ideas and people and people from different towns. You know, our town sizes range from just a little over 3,000 people to just a little over 14,000. So it's nice to have all of those voices at the meeting.
Yeah. Awesome.
Great.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I look forward to seeing you tonight.
I actually attended Title V training yesterday, so I'm blowing my mind up right now with lots of information.
You're going all in, huh?
I'm going all in. I go big all the time. Go big or go home, right?
There you go. That's good to hear. Great. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Jim. Much appreciated.
Thanks, Jim.
Alrighty, I will see some of you tonight, and have a good day.
You too.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye. Bye.
All right. Couple of other items, again, not on the agenda, that looks like we're doing a school pickup there. Neighborhood Renewal Division, previously known as Abandoned Housing. They have sent a document in, which Samantha received on our behalf. I think I've got it here, if you give me a second. Basically, the program manager sent an email to us via Samantha, just really letting us know about their existence with a little information about their division and program. Neighborhood Renewal Division, formerly the Abandoned Housing Initiative, works with municipalities throughout the Commonwealth who want to enforce Massachusetts State Sanitary Code. In order for NRD to be involved, municipality will refer certain properties to us. Typically happens when owners have not responded to violation letters imposed by municipality. The NRD does not go out and pursue properties not meeting sanitary code. We take referrals directly from the municipality, leave it to the municipality, take the lead when choosing properties for us to focus on. Currently work with 161 municipalities, blah, blah, blah. We worked with the Board of Health and successfully addressed a number of neglected properties, 84 Sterling Street as an example. If we're interested in learning more, we can schedule a quick meeting. Could do a brief presentation. So this is just them reaching out to us. I wanted to make sure that everybody knew about this, in case we have a need to have this presentation. I'm not so sure that we do, but I didn't want to make that decision arbitrarily. Samantha, you know what I'm thinking out loud is, can we take this issue and put it on the agenda for June? And my thinking is that by June we will have transitioned the board to its new configuration with potentially new officers, and we can actually make a more informed decision about whether we want this neighborhood referral division to come and talk to us or not. I don't think we have enough abandoned properties to worry about it that much, but it might be something the board wants to do. So if you don't mind making a note for putting this back on the agenda for June, I think that would be great. But
Sure, I can do that, and then I'll also just let the lady know, that we will be addressing this at our June meeting, and I can get back to her with questions at that point.
yeah, why don't you thank her for the reach out? Let her know that that we're very appreciative, that we discussed it briefly, that the board is going to be undergoing sort of a transition, and that we will meet again to discuss it in June. Because right now John's not here to discuss it. Melinda is transitioning with her son, and it's not really a good time to do this kind of business. The last thing that I'll say before we talk about minutes approval, and I'm not sure we can do that unless Melinda is available, is it looks like Melinda is available. Why don't we do it now while she is available? So Samantha, so we're going to propose approval of minutes for both February 25, 2024, as well as, I'm sorry, January 25th, as well as February 29th. Is that right?
That's correct.
And those minutes had been sent out. I don't think we had any changes or significant changes. I think John had some changes that we incorporated for
January. Yep, we made those.
January meetings.
Yep.
So I'm going to seek to have a motion to approve the minutes of those two meetings. And since Melinda is driving, I'm going to make the motion myself. So I'm going to move that we approve Board of Health minutes for both January 25 and February 29, 2024. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
All right, all in favor. Melinda?
Aye.
Jeff, aye. Motion carries. Minutes are approved. Let's look at our next meeting date, as long as, again, we still have Melinda here. Our next meeting would normally be April 25, Thursday, April 25th. I'm just going to assume that meeting date is fine. I don't. All right. So we'll assume that the next meeting, unless we hear differently from either Melinda or John, that we will meet again on April 25th, 9:30 a.m. via Zoom.
Sounds good.
The final thing is, do not be surprised if you get something in the email from me. There's a number of things that have come across my desk that I think warrant posting on our website. They have to do with mosquito control, the fact that mosquito control is going to kick back into action with its spraying. I think the town should know that. The Department of Public Health, Massachusetts, has issued some new respiratory disease guidelines that are not earth-shattering, but I think I can summarize those and put that in a document for the website. There's an increase in measles cases that I think might be worth mentioning. And also, Samantha and I think that since we still get questions from people about our dumpster and portable septic fees, that we should put another announcement on the website reminding the town that the Board of Health no longer seeks to require fees for temporary dumpsters or portable septic. So those are possibly 4 things that might come out. I won't send them out without passing it through Melinda and John for approval or agreement. They are not things we don't typically vote as a board on these things. In the past, when we've needed to post something on the website, we just sort of make that decision as a consensus over email. So that's really all I have. We've done the minutes approval. We have a date for our next meeting. We've got Melinda taking over Neshoba as well as FEP. We can talk more about that next month. And unless there's anything else that we need to talk about, I could entertain a motion for adjournment.
I don't have anything else.
You okay with adjourning, Melinda?
Yes, sir.
All right. Bill, anything from you?
Nope.
All right. Motion to adjourn. All in favor? Jeff Pastor, aye.
Melinda Apgar, aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you,
Okay.
everyone. Have a great day.
All right. Take care, everybody.